Welcome to the Writer Groupie podcast. I'm Kim Smith, the writing guru, bringing you discussions, insights, and insider details on planning, producing, promoting, and profiting as a writer. This is a podcast by writers for writers. You can find out more about Writer Groupie at www.kimsmithauthor.com. And here's the next episode of Writer Groupie. And here we go with another show. This is episode 38 of Writer Groupie, and my guest tonight is Jennifer Anderson, the author of the Honey Creek books, YA romance, and I love YA. Jennifer, is it YA or is it new adult?
It is YA. I do have a new adult, but the whole Honey Creek series was young adult.
Okay. And it's set in Honey Creek, Ohio, which I'm wondering, is this a made-up town?
It is. So the publisher, Turquoise Morning Press, had created a fictitious town, I think based off the publisher's own hometown in Ohio. And I was turned on to it by a fellow author I met on Twitter. And she said, you should try writing for this. And I started with my first novella, which was Ice Princess. And about 8 weeks afterwards, I was told they were offering me a contract. So it was very exciting from there. It just kind of steamrolled, and I turned it into a 4-book series. But it's currently still available under Honey Creek, but shortly it will be changing names. Just the series name. I'm going to keep the rest of it the same, and I have to change the name of the town because our publisher closed their doors a couple weeks ago. So
oh wow.
Since they own the rights to Honey Creek, I have to change that. Normally, as an author getting my rights back, I wouldn't have to change anything, but since that was stipulated in my original contract, so it will be Strawberry Falls, and it'll still be set in Ohio. And we're going to keep the same covers and everything. So that was nice. She gifted the covers to me because I do like them.
That is very nice. So, this is something that, unfortunately, in today's marketplace, small publishers, they just can't take this stress and strain of the ups and downs of the industry. Sometimes it's just more than a small publisher can afford to bear. They don't have the money behind them that the big five have, and so some of them are going out of business. Unfortunately, TMP is one of them, and I'm very sorry to hear it because I was really excited about, getting to know, the owner and you guys. I met a lot of y'all at the Imaginarium 2015 up in Louisville this fall, and so I was really upset to hear that TMP was closing, and, well, the main question I guess everybody's going to want to know is, what do you do now? What do you do now?
Well, I know. Fortunately, the writing was on the wall for a little while. She had kept us very informed about what was happening, how the market was affecting us. And we thought we were going to be okay. But for some personal reasons, some other stuff, she went ahead and decided to go ahead and close. So while I had thought I was going to have my rights back at the beginning of the year and then I would start dealing with it then, I was kind of thrusted into this now. So I'm kind of in an interesting situation. I mean, I'm thankful I have book covers I don't have to redo. I have fully edited manuscripts. So I had the option of self-publishing those, which I am going to do. Some may try to resubmit to other publishers, and I've spoken to a couple of our authors that are at other places. And what you need to remember is a lot of publishers may want a different kind of edit, changing the content, changing the name, maybe changing the characters. They wanted something a little fresher if they're going to take a chance on it and publishing it for you. So for me, my Honey Creek series has been around for a while, so I felt like it had done some of its duty, and now it's just going to be kind of my backlist. I still love the stories completely. I fell in love with this town and these characters. I even had a new one that was a new Honey Creek that was ready to be released in 2 weeks, and now it's not. So, yeah. So, I kind of got a few things. So I'm going to self-publish those. I'm going to self-publish my other titles I have with TMP because unfortunately I had all of my books with them. But they're all ready to go, and she's gifted us our covers, which is not something people do very often.
Not very often at all.
No, so I'm thankful for that. However, I think now I'm kind of going to take a hybrid kind of approach. So I'm going to self-pub what I can, and I'm going to take my release that was supposed to happen, and I think I'm going to try to go the traditional publishing route, or at least testing the waters and see what I can do with that. So I'm very excited, and I have another book in that series then that's halfway done. So it's very stressful and very like crazy, but I think it's also forced me to really focus my writing into a specific genre, I believe.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know exactly how to look at this, but if you want to look on the bright side, you do write two of the hottest markets in the industry today, and that's YA and romance. They are, I'm telling you, when I went to a classroom and taught, I had the benefit of teaching English classes for an entire day. These were high school students, and when you asked them what did they read and what did they want more of, their answer was Twilight. They want teen romance and they want paranormal. They love it, love it, love it. Hot market. Of course, now this is a year or so ago, so they're probably not screaming Twilight right now. But they're still into the, young adult romance. So I think you're in a hot marketplace with your writing, and I know you're gifted, and I know you're not going to have any trouble placing those books if that's what you want to do. If you decide to go the self-pub route, what do you think is going to be your biggest challenge?
Oh, goodness. Basically learning this industry, because it's definitely its own entity. I've had the pleasure of listening to Megan Fox, who is a huge self-pub author. Now, she's a little bit of a hybrid. She started out in traditional and then went self-pub. I had the luxury of listening to her speak and talk about how you could succeed in this industry. And there's so many different routes you can try as far as publicity for yourself when you go self-publishing, that you really need, or I'm going to definitely really need to figure out what works for me and what works with my schedule and my life. Besides navigating uploads and figuring out how to use Amazon Publishing Direct and all those kinds of things. So I think for me, it's really going to be, okay, do I want to invest a little money in and use a service? I'm considering, like, the one group that's here local is the Killian Group, which they could, upload and format my books for me. Or do I want to attempt this on my own with help from friends who have done it on their own? Right. I'm just going to have to really focus and make my list and just kind of stick with it and use that as my guide. And, if something doesn't work, I got to take it off right away and find something else to plug into its place.
Yeah, something I've heard recently that I've actually decided to do myself is to create a release schedule. Take an Excel spreadsheet and work up what you have versus how much time you've got before you want it to come out, and then how much time between releases, and just create yourself a release schedule in a concrete matter so that you have something to look at. I'm a visual person. I like having something to look at. I've recently discovered spreadsheets, and I've been making them like crazy. Oh my gosh, I have 3 or 4 of them on my desktop right now, and I'm just happy as a lark crunching numbers. But that's something that I think is very helpful, is to try and put things, in an organized manner, because I've done a lot of self-publishing, and I'm telling you, it can be overwhelming when you start really diving in, and there's so many things to cover. You got to put your arms around so much, and sometimes it really can be overwhelming. So just know you have friends out here. If you have any questions or you need me for anything, just zap me an email, because I'll be glad to help you any way I can.
I will definitely take you up on that.
Yeah. Also, when I was doing my research for the show, I happened to notice that you had been a marketing coordinator and acquisitions editor in your resume. And so now I'm wondering, having those kinds of opportunities in your repertoire, how do you think that's going to help you at this new stage of your writing career?
Oh goodness, a lot. It's funny that you mentioned a release schedule because that was definitely something we were doing with our authors, especially our box set authors, as far as organizing blog tours and release parties and things like that. So that is definitely something we use as, and then really figuring. I think it really helps to there's not a lot of terminology, but there's almost like those relationships you need to approach when you want to review or you want to advertise. Having that knowledge, I think, helps. I think even just having the experience of reading various different manuscripts for acquisitions, and not comparing myself to them, but just realizing what other different materials out there, what other people are trying to submit, and making friends with those people and really using those people as people to lean on and for information. I will say that job taught me so much. I started that before my first book was released, and you just don't understand the entire publishing world until you're in it and you're in the depths of it and you realize, oh my gosh, I don't understand any of this. Why is this like this? But it's always been done this way, and this is how they're going to keep doing it. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience and something that I've just loved and cherished doing for the past couple of years. And I'm sad that it's gone, but I do still edit on my own as a side job. So I do get to keep my feet in it a little bit.
Yeah. And that, being on the other side of the table, is going to benefit you, I really believe. As you go forward, you have the benefit of both author and editor and marketing guru, or whatever that title is, and those kinds of things can only help you, I would think. So I think you'll be real pleased that you had those opportunities. It sounds like you've got some good stuff to lean on, in your repertoire. So I was thinking also, if an author or aspiring author listening to this program were to suddenly find themselves in the situation that you're in, where they've lost or are losing their publisher, what would be 3 of your top pieces of advice for them on what to do now?
Oh gosh. First of all, I think, take that time, step back, and let yourself grieve the moment. And it's okay, because you know what? It's a big change. It's a big, oh my gosh, kind of moment. Take that time and let yourself grieve, and really let yourself go there for a little bit. But you know what? I think what you need to do is then you need to pick yourself back up and have some hope. Because for one, if your publisher went out of business and your rights are back to you, that doesn't mean your career is done. That means somebody liked you. Somebody loved your writing, somebody loved your book, and somebody else is still going to love it. So it's not that you've failed in this industry, which is a hard industry sometimes. You've got to have faith in yourself and realize, you know what, somebody did really like me. It's not my fault they went out of business. And you need to carry on that momentum. I think you need to stay close with your writer friends that you've made in that group. I know for myself, we were a family, and I'm going to hold on to them. And luckily for us, she's keeping some of the Yahoo loops and the Facebook loops for us to really share information with each other, because honestly, they know what they've done and what works, and they're always willing to share it. And I think the third thing is that you really you have to be able to force yourself to move on from the moment and focus on what makes you happy about why you started this to begin with. You love writing, you love getting those words down, and you love creating those stories and living your life through those characters. And I know for me, those are some of my happiest times, is when I'm really deep in a story, and I'm hashing it out, and I love it, but you've got to really hold on and have faith in yourself that, you know what, this too shall pass. And somebody did like you.
That's exactly right. That's great advice. Really, really brilliant. And that's so true too. Is that just because a publisher has to make a business decision that's going to affect you and your writing, you know, intimately, doesn't mean that that's the end of your life. That's not the end of your career. You're not going to dry up and blow away. You still have more books in you, and don't look at it like a bad thing. It can be a very, very good thing. Change can be good, people. I'm just telling you. I've actually been in that situation a couple of times myself. I've been a member of two small publisher families that both went out of business. And so I know what it's like, and it can be really shocking. I think the first initial thing is you're just shocked. Oh my gosh, what do I do now? It just takes you off of your feet. So your advice to give into that for just a hot minute is good. But don't wallow in it. You've got things to do. Now it's time to take action, not to sit and wallow in pity. So very, very, very good advice. Also in my interview research today, I saw on your blog that you host author interviews. Do you have one that stands out to you?
I will say one of my favorite authors to have on there, and she's been, I think, on there twice, is Margaret Etheridge, who also writes as Maggie Wells. If you've ever had a chance to meet her in person, she is a hoot, and she comes across on paper or computer screen the exact same way. She has a wonderful sense of humor. She writes beautifully, has these stories that are they're funny and they're catching, and you just fall in love with these characters. And I love her pieces, and fortunate for me, she is another one of my cheerleaders, and always there to read something of mine, offer several pats on the back, and if I really need her to, she'd probably drive from Arkansas up just to bring me, I don't know, something from Sonic, because that's her favorite place. So yeah, she is one of my favorites.
Well, I'll have to see if I can't hunt her up and get an interview with her. Writer Groupie's always looking for new guests.
Oh, she is fantastic, and she has had some really great success recently in the traditional publishing world and agents and stuff. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, listen, if an author is listening or watching the program, how do they get in touch with you to be hosted on your blog?
Oh my goodness. So my blog originally started out as being kind of a musing of things, writery, lifey, motherly, so I'm at musingsfromthepeanutgallery.blogspot.com, and you can email me at jenandersonauthor@gmail.com. And again, it's jenandersonauthor.com is my website, and there should be a link to contact me there as well. But any genre I'll take, as long as there's nothing too graphic in the pictures. But absolutely, even aspiring authors that are maybe want to stop by and read some stuff or have questions, feel free to email me. I'm more than willing to share what I can and pass along, because I actually had an author friend that I went to high school with, and she helped me, so I'm always there to pay it forward.
I'm introducing my dog to the screen because she's just determined she's going to be a part of every show now. She sits here and scratches on my legs until I pick her up, and she's over here licking my fingers, and I'm like, I'm sure everybody can hear this lapping sound, so better put her up there where people can see her. Say hi, Darby. Hi, Darby. So anyway, the reason why I asked about that also is I have several friends who have books who have just come out. Paul West, are you paying attention? His book, Bridgetown High, I think the name of it is, has just been released, and he's going to be looking for places to connect with readers. And so I will get him in touch with you, Jen, because I know he's going to want to try and do some author interviews on some hosted blogs. Also, I got to ask you this, because this question keeps coming up in my emails and in questions on forums and things, and that is if blogging is still a viable way to reach readers. Do people still use their blogs to reach their readers?
I don't have a huge viewership, except when I have certain people on, and then they share me all over the web. I think with the explosion of Facebook and everything, you're seeing this kind of stuff shared more often, with people like, "Hey, I read this great article. Here you go." I think yes, for writers, I think it's a kind of a fun alternative to a newsletter, because I know I don't have a newsletter, and this is my way of kind of getting stuff out there that I find is interesting. Um, and I think it's fun because then I think readers can actually respond to you or respond to posts and not feel threatened or intimidated by it, because they can keep it completely anonymous if they've got a comment about something. So I think for some, but I think you have to actually promote yourself a little bit out there to get it to work, because those are the only ones that work. If you got to keep it kind of regular, and you've got to promote it. So
Yeah, that's true. If you're not telling people where your website is and where your blog is and trying to promote your sites, you're not going to have much traffic. And that's
right.
critical in today's oversaturated book industry, you guys. You've got to have a website. You definitely need a blog so that you can do it if you don't do anything else but let people know when a new work is coming out. So I think it's still a viable way. Everything I do is on my blog. My podcast is on my blog. My blog is on my blog. Everything I do is on my blog. So I do believe it is. I like to ask that question because you have a nice blog. I enjoyed reading your blog.
Thank you.
Well, listen, we're down to about the last 5 or 6 minutes of the show. And so the last thing I always get my guests to tell us is what they would tell an aspiring author. Give them a piece of advice they can't do without.
Well, there's definitely a lot of advice floating out there. I would have to say that probably the easiest one, and the one that I'm told all the time, is just write. Just write. You may not have a story idea right now. You may be a little blocked on what you're doing, but just write. And backing up, and I heard this the other day, and I'm not sure how much, but I was told that if you're blocked in your writing, that means there's something wrong with your outline of your story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I said, okay, that makes sense. But, even if it doesn't work, even if you get past this block, because, maybe it's just you've had a bad week, but just write something, even if it's a letter to yourself, even if it's a blog post, or even if it's just a couple of paragraphs on maybe an idea of what's going to happen later in your story. I find myself doing that all the time. If I can't get past the scene, I jump ahead and I write, I want this to happen. I need this to happen now. Now it's happened. Now I'm going to get myself there, and that'll keep me flowing. So just write.
That's great advice. You guys, 1 or 2 pages a day will get you a book by the end of the year. It only takes 250 to 500 words a day. That's it. You could do a page in the morning, a page in the evening, and you'll have your book by the end of the year. It's not that hard. Force yourself. I promise you, once you start writing, you'll find it harder to stop than you did to start. And
Right.
Yes, you are allowed to write crap.
Absolutely. And keep that notebook with you. I keep a notebook, a little one in my purse. Go out and buy a cute one if it makes you feel better, and a funky pen. And if I'm, but now with my new job, I'm working really hard during the day. I don't have those breaks to write like I used to. So I've got that pen to write down those ideas, because, my second day of work, an idea came to me already, and I was like, oh, and I'm writing it down as I'm in the middle of a meeting. So pad and paper always.
Always. Well, listen, Jen, be sure and tell us now all the different places where my viewers and listeners can find you, because they're going to want to come out and visit your blog.
Yes. Okay. So musings at thepeanutgallery.blogspot.com. I'm on Facebook with an author page, a Jen Anderson author page, and I'm on Twitter, and my website, jenandersonauthor.com. So,
and y'all, if you have any problems finding her. I'll have the links in the show notes to all her sites, as well as some things that I mentioned in the intro. Listen, if you're not listening to the audio feed, the podcast part of the Writer Groupie program, you're missing out on a lot of good info. I've started doing an introduction to every show, and in that introduction, I catch you up to date on what's going on with me and where you can find some great information. So don't forget to listen to the audio feeds sometimes anyway. Jen, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It's just been a pleasure, and I hope that you'll come back. When you get all this stuff situated and you're ready to start promoting those books, you just holler at me and we'll do it again.
Absolutely. I'd love to. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for listening to this edition of Writer Groupie. For booking information, show notes, and more, visit KimSmithAuthor.com.